Hello everybody and welcome back to Swamp Dog Games. Today is your chance to raise your black flag and tell Wizards of the Coast, no more shall you oppress our hobby with your insane threats of and possibly illegal threats of withdrawing the open gaming license that is the powerful backbone of third-party creators of content in the D20 RPG hobby space. Today we will be reviewing RPG Worlds by Kobold Press and Friends. This is a humble bundle that allows you, that's right, you, to help fund the Kobold, or the comic book legal defense fund that they are trying to generate to prop up defense of third-party publishers when they're going to have to go to court against Wizards of the Coast in order to defend the OGL 1.0A legal agreement that has powered the imagination and creative abilities of publishers for over 22 years. Yes, you can help support the defense of OGL 1.0A by helping buy this bundle, and if you want, you can also help support the channel by buying it through the link to this bundle in the pinned comment and the description. If you are unfamiliar with how Humble Bundle reviews work on this channel, I have bought this entire bundle for you. We're going to look at everything that's in it, review it, and see if it is worth your time and money. In my opinion, even if it wasn't defending the comic book legal defense fund, this is probably worth your money. The Humble Bundles are usually tiered products. You can usually get a very cheap tier. Usually they start off around $1, in this case about $5. Intermediate tier that's really there just to provide the illusion of choice, and then the upper tier, which is where you get everything in the game. Now, in your $5 tier, this actually isn't that bad. You get a player's handbook for Castles and Crusades. Now, technically, by the way, that is actually currently free, the 7th printing of the Castles and Crusades handbook. Different color, but it's the same rules. You get a slightly different cover in the Humble Bundle version. However, it's the same rules. There isn't much difference between this and the current 8th version. This still works. It's still compatible. You're not losing out on anything by getting the 7th edition. It just has a slightly different artwork and layout in it. So don't quote page numbers, but everything that is in the current version, minus a few tweaks, I believe, is all here. You also get a couple adventure tales, a Tome of Beasts, sort of a 5e bestiary, Castle on the Hill adventure for Castles and Crusades, the not mind flayers octopus head guys adventure, and the City of Cats from and a map of the Lost Lands world. In the middle tier, you get everything that you get in the 8 bundle item. Here you also get Castles and Crusades, Codex Germania. This is their system of sort of Germanic, not dramatic. Curse you, foreign language. Germanic fantasy rules. So not quite Conan, but kind of in that ish vein. You also have the Basic and Expert Adventure Module Series, the Phylactery Magazine, the Lost Lands, and some more adventures on top of that. But the biggest bundle that you're going to want is this one, the 52-item bundle for $25. Here you get everything. We will be reviewing everything you get in it. Just as a price note comparison, currently, to obtain both the Player's Tome and the Referee's Tome for Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy, to buy both of those in PDF is $30. This Humble Bundle, you get both for $25. So already a $25 saving, and all this other amazing content that comes with it, and you're funding the legal defense so that Comic Book Defense Fund can hopefully save our hobby from this encroachment by Wizards. Because remember, according to that leak from the internal Wizards employee, you are nothing more than an obstacle between Wizards and their money. So make sure that you do not give Wizards their money. Give it to third-party OGL publishers. Give it to support them in their legal fight. Get some great RPG products. And if you want to, again, help support the channel by doing it through the link in the description below. Now, on to the review of what you get in this bundle. Of quick note, though, when you do the back end, you're going to have to look at each file individually to get to attribute whose is whose work, because whoever was doing data entry on this got a little bit lazy and listed everything as Fraud God Games, and I know damn well that Castles and Crusades is Troll Lord Games, and Old School Essentials is Necrotic Gnome. So Humble Bundle, please, you're good guys, you support charity, but you need to get your data entry guy a little bit more focused so he can provide the correct publisher for all of the content in here. All right, first off in this bundle is going to be the Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy, both the Player's Tome and the Referee Tome. I have already reviewed both of these. If you want to see that review, hopefully a card should be popping up here in the corner. This is, in my opinion, one of the best OSR-style rule sets out there. It's between this and Castles and Crusades that's sort of vying for my #1 spot. Right now, my group prefers Old School Essentials just because it's a little bit closer to their traditional view of how Dungeons & Dragons plays. This is using the OGL 1.0a that, again, Wizards is threatening to recreate the old Moldvay Cook basic expert rules and bring them into the modern era. Now, they do have a slightly confusing product line. They have Old School Essentials Classic Fantasy, which is just Moldvay Cook style content. Then they have the Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy, which is everything that's in their classic line, plus some BX/Moldvay Cookified content from Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. I personally own the Advanced Fantasy, both the hardcover and the PDFs, because I'm a fan of this particular play style. And again, you get both of these. $30 would be the cost for both PDFs from Drive-Thru RPG. This Humble Bundle, you get everything for $25, and we haven't even scratched the rest of the content available in here. Again, very good OSR-style product. Very well rendered in here. You get access to all the amazing content that they've produced in these two rule books. Well worth the price of admission. Next up is most of this seems to be BX themed. I'm not sure if these were based on, in any way, shape, or form, Old School Essentials. I don't think so, because they're not listed down here, but they seem to all be BX-style OSR products that are in here, with the exception of Castles and Crusades. This is the second rule book that you get in this Humble Bundle, called Gangbusters. It's sort of a 1920s gangster. Yeah, see? BX edition, see? We play, the Rum Runner, see? With the basic rules, see? And this is where my audience yells at me, stop doing that horrible gangster accent. This here is going to be, again, if you're familiar with D&D style D20 playing, this is pretty much that, but aimed at recreating the Al Capone style Rum Runners adventures in Gangland, using, I'm assuming, a sort of Moldvay Cook style explanation of the rules, since they're calling it the BX edition of Gangbusters. You also have your Tall Tales, which is the Wild West BX fantasy adventure game. So if you like your cowboys, or the Spanish-American War, or want to fight at the Alamo, or you enjoy Zorro adventures, or maybe Lone Ranger adventures, I wish I could put the theme of the Lone Ranger. Yes, I know that's the fourth part of William Tell's Overture, but as Bill Connolly once said, or is at least quoted as saying, my definition of an intellectual is someone who can listen to the William Tell Overture without thinking of the Lone Ranger. But you do get your Western fantasy in here, again, with the BX theme. It seems to hopefully convey a more Mulvey Cook style planning. And I'm guessing looking at this is from the same guys who did Gangbusters. Next is Castles and Crusades. As I said, this is sort of my vying for favorite. This is their 7th printing. Now, if I had a complaint about Castles and Crusades and Troll Lord games, guys, your printing mess is highly confusing. I think the design philosophy for the product line of Old School Essentials was bad enough. You guys have made it even worse with your printing schedule, because the Player's Handbook is on its 8th printing currently. It's Castle Keeper, which is its like Dungeon Master style book, though really less ruly and more world building practical guidance for a Dungeon Master, not really a necessary book the same way the Dungeon Master's Handbook is the Castle Keeper's Guide. That's on their 4th printing, and their Monster Manual is in its 3rd printing. And so printing just means it's the most current rendition of it. Realistically, there's not much in rules that change between these printings. It's more of cleanup. They have occasionally brought in some supplemental works that they've done, brought some of those rules into the core rule set, but they haven't taken anything out. The core mechanics of the game haven't changed. So if you have the 7th edition, I believe you can go all the way back to the 5th edition, not the 5th edition, the 5th printing of the Player's Handbook, and it's still the same enough that it's not that big a deal purchasing that older edition. It still plays perfectly well with the current printing. It's not different enough. It just may be missing some maybe cleanup, some spell check, some formatting, there's some slightly better artwork in the most recent edition, the 8th edition, and there might be missing a little bit of content because things had been published subsequently, but it's not anything core that's going to prevent you from being able to play. And again, you get this for free in this bundle. Their system is a little bit unique in that rather than most OSR games which try to replicate in the big case of like saving throws and skill checks being like a chart that you have to compare your skills based upon level, such as the thief, his ability to climb walls, his ability to pickpocket, his ability to disable traps. Castles and Crusades gets rid of most of that by instead having a universal. They also get rid of the death saves, breath saves, spell saves, wand saves, and petrifying saves that other OSR products do because they're replicating older design philosophy and go with, in a way, kind of. Actually, I think they did it first, the way that 5th edition does it, where it's just your saves are against strength, saves are against dex, saves are against con. However, you just have a base DC, whether it's a primary or non-primary attribute, and then you add your level and some other rolls into it to accomplish tasks and actions. So it's a very simple, straightforward, fast action resolution system that allows you to get the rules out of the way and keep the story going, that the game master can remember the few basics of how it works and not have to constantly consult a crap load of rules in order to facilitate gameplay in that system. There's also a player's compendium that's available that takes a lot of open licensed content from Troll Lord games, supplements that they put online, some fan-created content that's on their site that's given for free. There's a lot of stuff. These guys are also very supportive of veterans. There was at one point, it could be still going, I haven't looked at it recently, where they were giving like 50% discount to veterans. And I was like, and I've usually like to take advantage of my veterans discount when I can get it. This is one of the few times I'm like, you guys are giving away way too much for your discount, and I don't want to fight with you. I'll pay full price. So I actually ended up buying 3 copies of their Player's Handbook, their Castle Keeper's Guide, their Monster Manual, and some of their other content, all at full price, because it was like, I can't fight with you guys. I can't take your 50% off deal, and because I don't feel right doing it, and I don't want to fight with you guys for only taking like 10% off the purchase, so I'll just buy the full price package. But it's a purchase that I haven't looked back on. I'm a big fan of Castles and Crusades, and it will be the Castles and Crusades content that we are going to be looking at first. The first adventure that you get in this bundle, again, this will all be Troll Lord Games content. And before I forget as well, this was kind of the unofficial, supported by Gary Gygax, Troll Lord Games, as sort of like the true spiritual successor to how he envisioned Dungeons and Dragons should be. So these guys have a long history with their product being supported by the community, getting good shoutouts by the guy who invented the game, and is surprisingly not anywhere as big as I think they should be, or anywhere as well known as they should be. It's this really hard to find organization that has a massively dedicated, hardcore fan following that really deserves much bigger and wider acclaim than what they do. But again, because they don't have Wizards money, they kind of get drowned out in their marketing campaign. The first one is Stairs Upon the Green. This is sort of a generic castle keep, though it's designed to fit into their Erdhide or Erdi or Aeride campaign setting. It really is just a generic castle keep that you can stick about anywhere. It provides a lot of rooms, monsters, and a theme for the castle that can draw the players to it and then act as their home base. So if you don't like your traditional Morgan's Fort from Basic Fantasy or Keep on the Borderlands, the new rendition that Goodman Games did, this would be a very good starting look. Well, it's aimed monster-wise at more mid-level characters, but let's say that they're starting to get on their characters and they need a more permanent home base that they can call theirs to start maybe generational adventuring through. This could be a good adventure through that. Again, this is more mid-level aimed content. The second one, Guildsen Orders, this one realistically could be considered system agnostic. There's nothing in here that ties it to D20 or any D&D style game. It's about ideas, some pre-formed guilds that they have created for you, or that could be used as the basis for creating your own. It's one of the shorter ones in this bundle, but it's aimed as support in helping you create more of your world rather than any adventure in particular. This one is another basic adventure where the players stumble across an inn and become involved in a quest to obtain your standard adventuring MacGuffin. A nice short little adventure. This is going to be slightly on the lower end, so they've survived their first couple of adventures and are looking for lower mid-tier style adventure to engage in. And here is the description of what you'll be going on in this. This one, it is designed for their Ardide campaign setting, but again, like most things of theirs in this bundle, you can pretty much set it anywhere. It's very modular, and the GM can very easily smooth a couple corners that can put it anywhere in their own homebrew setting without anything in here being too reliant on broader knowledge of the Troll Lord Games internal setting. Speaking of which, the Codex of Aery, and I know I'm mispronouncing that, this is a expansion to their primary codex. This was Stefan and this was his personal campaign based off of that. The broader rules is a couple hundred pages with the entire history of this world. They have geographical data, political data, economic data for this. It's very intense, the amount of data that he's created for it, because it was his own private world. In some ways, I think it might be a little bit too much for the practical player who's just playing a couple of adventures every week. If you have like a really hardcore love of world creation, world building, designing epic fantasy settings, the Codex series that they offer is worthwhile for that. I personally believe that it might be a little bit too much for a beginning dungeon master, beginning players. There's a lot of data that they just don't need. They just want to go off adventuring and kill stuff. But if you love deep world building lore, this is a good series. This is unfortunately just the small expansion to the original Codex, but you could get the Codex from Trollord Games, and that is definitely worth it. This one is your classic adventure setting against giants. It's a 3-part adventure, all of them aimed at about level 5 to 6. Each of the 3 parts can be done in about 4 hours, 5 hours each. That you are trying to save the people of the XYZ area from all of these nomadic, rampaging giant troops that are going through the land. Castle on the Hill is more of a classic style dungeon run. You're going through a relatively small dungeon, but the goal is to defeat the mad wizard who runs it, clean out the horde. This is a much more traditional style adventure in this module. A fun one-shot, but is very traditionally aimed at dungeon crawl in a relatively small dungeon environment. This next one it looks like aimed a little bit more at just being a combat experience with tactical and sneaking elements that the players engage on in this adventure. It will challenge them a bit, but it is aimed at a more hack and slash, in my opinion, from the description of it, if you play it to the original design intent, than a roleplay adventure per se. This is, in my opinion, one of the better ones of the Castles and Crusades offerings, the Codex Germania. This is Germanic style, not roleplay. Well, it is using it for roleplay purposes, but these are the Germanic style myths and legends that have been translated into gameable rules. If you want to have, like, Valkyries or Odin come into your game and engage with the players directly, and other Germanic style folklore and myth and legendary characters to engage with, this is going to be the RPG codex that you are going to want to introduce into your campaign. That's the end of Castles and Crusades. Now moving on into no particular order until we eventually get to the Lost Lands collection. We have Book of the Ebon Tides. This one I'm not going to review. I will instead point you towards Ginny D. She did granted paid, but in my opinion, a good thorough rundown of the book. She can explain what's in there better. I don't have a link to get reimbursed for that, and you can follow her link for that. I have bought it. I have not had a chance to play it yet. I do not have any personal experience. It was bought. I bought it completely off of her recommendation, so I feel it's just right, if I haven't played it, firsthand knowledge, point you her direction and save me from having to read 257 pages before trying to give my opinion on it. The next one is going to be the Bestiaries. This is your ultimate Bestiary book. This one is a lot of alternative monsters of what you get in the basic D&D 5th edition book. Examples like 12 different kobolds, 14 different goblins. It's just a lot of variation on monsters. It's not introducing, and I don't think going through here it introduced any monster that I haven't seen before in a D&D game, but it does have the introduction of a ton of variations of those basic monsters so that you're not just fighting your 15,000th kobold. You're actually facing a very uniquely mixed group of monsters that may all be kobolds but have distinct personalities, equipment, in stats, index, material, and tactical patterns to be used against the player. Next one is Tome of Beast Lairs. This is another bestiary that is designed for 5e monsters. Again, any OSR Dungeon Master can adjust these to pretty much any OSR or OGL 1.0 based classical D20 RPG can adjust this pretty much without any issue. These are less variation of monsters and more an in-depth explanation of monsters that would have layers of their own. Think the Spider Queen. Rather than you facing a million of the Spider Queen, it's just the one baddie beast. These are more of your boss monsters and the layers that they would inhabit, such as this creepy looking thing. It does have a lot more maps in it, again, because these are going to be more boss monster-y, less minion-y, that the other bestiary was aimed at in providing variation of the enemies that you're facing. This does have some variation of the classic tropes, but it is aimed primarily at creating more of a curated boss battle experience for those monsters. Come across this, and my first thought is the Scorpion King movie. Or not the Scorpion King movie, because actually that wasn't too bad, starring Dwayne Johnson. The bad CGI of the Scorpion King in the second Mummy movie is what this one reminds me of, though the CGI is a lot better. Either that or the Tholian from Star Trek, just because I need to get a Star Trek reference in here so I can annoy Crow in this review. The last bestiary, or at least that I've gone through so far, is the dreaded Accursed Bestiary. This is, again, your variations of your classic undead. There's 12 different skeleton types in here. There's 10 different liches that you can use. So it's not new monsters, but new variations of those monsters to provide some unique situational encounters. So maybe you are fighting an undead campaign, while skeletons can get pretty boring pretty quickly when you're fighting the traditional three: the swordsman, the melee, and the archer type skeletons. And this allows you to break them up quite a bit by introducing skeleton dragons or skeleton mastodons, or just variations of other types of skeleton warriors you can face. And so this provides a lot of that variation for monsters in your campaign. This one is your big adventures, magical items codex that provides all kinds of extremely high-level magic items to your campaign. If you are doing a low-level magic campaign setting, this book definitely ain't for you. But if you're playing a game where magic items are pretty much around every quarter and you just need a lot of spicy variety to add to your campaign, this has a ton. Now, admittedly, if you are going to be doing a low-level magic campaign, I guess you could still use this. I stand corrected on that, but you're going to have to extremely limit the amount that you pull from this book. This is really designed to help facilitate, in my opinion, a much more higher-level magical campaign environment, and you're not running out of any material anytime soon. With just the amazing amount of content that is provided in this book. Then you have the Empire of the Ghouls, which is, again, 3080 RTX graphics card in here, and some of these PDFs are driving this machine to its limits. This one is sort of half gazetteer, half adventure for you going up against the ghouls. There's a lot of kingdom information here, a lot of information on the ghoulish empire that your players are going to be engaging in. This one has a ton of gazetteer information that you can bring into your campaign. So again, if you like world building, there's a lot of that in here. If you like fighting against undead, this is where that undead bestiary is really going to come in handy when you're sending your players against the ghoul empire. And at 355 pages worth of content, you're hopefully going to have a lot of content that's going to keep you going for a while with just the amount of adventuring that is possible in this game. Then you have the Endless Encounters dungeon. My thought reading through this was kind of like the D&D-ification of like the Chalice dungeons from the not Blood Rain. Was it Blood Rain? Crap, I should know this. What's the Souls-like game that was exclusive to the PlayStation? Bloodborne. That's the one I'm thinking of. This is sort of like the gamification of the Chalice dungeons from Bloodborne, where there's a heck of a lot of randomness that is constantly going on in this dungeon, and it would be very difficult to play the same dungeon twice with the same crew, even if you wanted to, with just the sheer amount of variation that it's designed to throw at you. This sums up the adventure of Into the Dark quite succinctly here. This is going to be a slightly more Gonzo dungeon crawl campaign. If you like it funny and somewhat bonkers, this, I think, will definitely be the dungeon crawl for your group. The Southlands Player's Guide, this one is part of the Southlands campaign setting. This, by itself, is useful as a player's guide. It does have a ton of non-traditional gaming races that you can introduce in your campaign, though it is for a larger campaign that isn't actually included here. It does have a lot of material in this player's guide that a game master could use to help fill a more Egyptian / Babylonian mystical desert vibe campaign setting. Even if you don't have the full adventure, this does provide a lot of content in its own to help facilitate, again, that sort of more mythological faux Egyptian style gaming campaign. Next is the Southlands World Guide. This is, again, your gazetteer. This is more world building for the game master. Not much practical adventuring is in here, but again, if you like deep lore series, if you want to learn more about world building, you want to see an obvious African continent map, this is the book for you. Again, this is definitely aimed at that faux, almost kind of reminds me of a 1920s viewpoint, view of desert culture with your Sodom and Gomorrah movies, your Ten Commandments films, your original Mummy, that sort of more classical Gonzo off-the-wall approach before internet became available and people could actually learn how the how the African continent worked. And it was not just the land of reincarnated mummies, but actually quite sophisticated political and technological empires that existed throughout the area. But this is going to be, again, more of a game master book for that Southlands campaign setting from Kobold Press. This is your City of Cats. This is again in the Southlands campaign setting. This is a big city hub for the players to operate out of. It does have some adventures. It doesn't draw into like a big campaign setting the same way that the Paizo's Rise of the Rune Lords or any of their adventure paths did. These are, my reading, again, very quickly, seem to be more isolated adventures, but it does have a lot of city content that's available if you want to create a pretty good starting hub for your characters in a more over-the-top Gonzo fantasy Egyptian desert campaign setting. Next two books that you get are the first two of a 3-part series. I hate when companies do this. This is my own personal opinion here. But if you're going to be doing this sort of donation to Humble Bundle, it would be nice if you either do just one. At the very least, you have to do the first one. I've had some where they've done like book 3 of a 3-part series, and then to help push you to buy the other two, no, dude. Do the first one, which you do here, but either just do the first one and that's it, or don't do this, like, here's the first 2 parts with the obvious intent of, like, psychologically pushing you to do the third one. Just me. But these are from Luke Gygax. These feel to me almost more like a Critical Role adventure, like going through the Tal'Dorei. Now, I know part of it's just recently watching it on Prime and looking through the book. That's kind of more front and center in my mind, but the art style that they're going with here, sort of the adventure, it makes me think this is more of a Critical Role style adventure with old school themes that Critical Role wouldn't touch, but it seems to be targeted, in my opinion, at that same overlapping audience. Again, could be completely wrong. Comment below what's your opinion on it. The next is Quartz of the Shadow Fae. I should have done this earlier. This, despite its name, is not actually related to the Ebon Tides book. That one was you go into the Shadow Realm. Quartz of the Shadow Fae. This is more of a political drama with shadowy figures pulling the strings behind the scenes, and more literally, compared to usually it being just powerful people influencing them away. This one, you actually get to engage with monsters and demons that are being used to help guide court politics. But it is a much more political themed drama, so if you do like that type of adventure, this is actually a very nicely well done adventure, in my opinion, and I do want to actually try playing this one soon with my adventuring crew. This one, the Warlock Grimoire, this is some more warlock stats, some more bestiary. It's a more general advancement. It doesn't have just one singular theme in added content, because there's a lot in here, but it seems to all support roughly the idea of the warlock class, but there's enough in here that the booklet has uses beyond just those who want to play a warlock. Then you have Basic Expert, Dead Men Tell No Tales. This was, I believe, a convention, North Texas RPG Con adventure series in that old Gygaxian style, where you fight all the monsters in the party at the table that go off into your next year's adventure. Into the Unknown, this is a solo play adventure. This does have a little bit of guidance on solo play, but you really, in my opinion, want a full-on solo play rule set to go with it. This does have a decent adventure. I honestly wouldn't do the solo. I'm more of a, for solo play, a D100 player from Mark Knight. this does have some good content in here that I would probably try to bring and have to re-level to get it into a usable form for a party, but I believe it would be better off utilized that way. Then the Brain Gorger's Appetite. This is, again, more of a slightly Gonzo-ish themed adventure with obviously not the Mind Flayer Cthulhu. Very horror-themed that you're trying to stop him on his deadly crusade through the town. But pretty good adventure for lower-level characters. I'm not sure I would necessarily put a first-level party in this adventure, but it could be fun. The Folio series, these, they say they're 1E and 1E and 5E compatible. These are weird bag. One moment I'm reading through it and it's your classic blue ink Dungeons and Dragons maps. The next, it's a more modern 5E isometric viewpoint. I know they're trying to highlight that this is a games adventure for anyone, but the mismatch of content presentation in here to me hurts my overall viewpoint of these two booklets, because it just does not feel coherent in adventure. There are mini adventures in here. There's not an overarching campaign. You can pretty much place this wherever you want, but it's just the lack of consistent art design throughout screams at me in a manner that makes it hard to focus on the campaign in a way to give it a good review, and I'm not really a fan of it. But you do get two of these. There are some great ideas in here, again, as you can tell by the cover here, aimed at first edition adventure mindset. So this might not be the type that you want to play with your Critical Role loving crowd, but if you like your old style Gygaxian adventure, Gonzo, Save the Princess theory style games, / your classical OSR games, this does have some very nice adventures in it for you to play. Then you have two zines in here. These, I believe, are standard US letter, which means you can print these out in zine format. These are much smaller adventures. They do have some monsters. They are, though, much smaller adventure content than most of the other books. This one, the Tome of Blighted Horrors, this one, even though it's not under the Lost Lands label, I feel like this was supposed to be part of the Lost Lands label. This is, some of these monsters might actually be from the Lost Lands, or were later included in it. This is a bestiary with a lot of monsters in the vein of, let's say, horror-themed. I was going to say, thinking like Warhammer's Chaos Gods, thinking of Nurgle, but that's not exactly accurate. But it's very dark fantasy, twisted horror, body horror, world fantasy monsters that are included in here. And I think this was designed to participate with the Blight campaign series. Now this, and I know YouTube is going to get me in trouble for saying this, I looked at these quickly. My first thought was demonic COVID. It's a disease is running rampant that causes people to catch fire and all kinds of other body horror things. And so if right now it's a little bit too close to home after having had to deal with this, I'm not sure I want to play this anytime soon. But very horror themed, again, with a blight that's running around killing people, and a very rough body horror style. I keep on saying body horror. I do not think this word means what you think it does, but very horror style, even if not body horror campaign setting. That you have all 5 adventures in it, so you have a campaign that can go last a long time off of just those couple books alone. Then again, you have sort of a world guide to the Lost Lands setting. This is the fifth edition rules that you'll need to get it useful. This is more an entire contained adventure in the Blight setting. As you can see, 890 pages. You're going to be adventuring for a long time if you do this. This is probably the largest single content bundle in here. Is all of this Lost Lands and Blight material. Campaign setting support. So if you like that sort of horror with, again, COVID that can make you spontaneously combust, this would be the books for you. This one I missed the first time because I looked through it so quickly. I wasn't paying full attention and thought it wasn't a rule book. It was an addendum to something else because the character sheet was different. This is actually a non-OGL RPG that's included in here. This is entirely separate. There's no OGL 1.0A license in here. As you can see going on to the character sheet, it's using a completely different system. I haven't had a chance to read this, and I've got so much other content I'm not going to, but you do have, again, offers of non-OGL content, at least one non-OGL RPG in here, if you do want to escape from Wizards OGL 1.0A. Or sorry, that's not the one we want to escape from. We want to escape from 1.1. And then if you didn't have enough Blight recording, then you have more Blight campaign information that's available in 5e, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and Swords and Wizardry. Rules, flavors of your choice. You also have World of the Lost Land map folios that are available, a ton of those, so you can cover the entire world at your leisure. These are at least hexed, though, so they also provide resources if you want to engage in a hex crawl as well. The last one is the Forbidden Caves of Arakia adventure setting, which is, again, that old OSR style. If you like the Goodman Games recreation of those original first edition classic TSR modules, this is in that style, and it is a very deadly environment. It's not that old. It is, as you can see here, 2017, but it is very clearly aimed at that classic style of adventure from that Goodman Games has been republishing recently. And as you can see, this one has this one's a combined one. It's got their Barrow Maze, the Forbidden Caverns, the High Fell, the Drifting Dungeon, and Darrow Deep. Is all that in here? Maybe it is. Okay. But that is the entirety of the Humble Bundle. So if you haven't gotten enough content out of this, again, this is one of the largest Humble Bundles out there. This video is forever. I pray to God you didn't all sit and listen to me talking boringly at you about all the content. But please go buy this bundle. It's extremely good and worth it. Again, it helps support fighting the legal challenges that are going to be faced soon in fighting Wizards over their 1.0A deauthorization garbage. Please, if you like the video and have stuck around this long, like it. If you think I was wrong on my interpretation on any of these products below, let me know below. If you want to purchase this game for yourself, this bundle for yourself, follow the link in the description. I hope that you do, because it does support, again, charity and help the channel grow. Thank you so much. As I get the suggestion that I now retroactively will steal via my new 1.1 open content video policy that I recently came up with. I will come up with a new catchphrase after each video. So if you've lasted this long, can you suggest ones in the comments below? And I'll read them out, the ones that I like at the end of each video. Some crazy ones. So for this one, as the closing statement for this great humble bundle, business, Buchayat. See y'all next time, folks. Have a good weekend.